Hello, friends. Welcome to yet another episode of Tea Talk with me, Owen Fernandez. I wish you a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever in the world you are. Today is the 19th of October 2021, and almost half of this month has gone away. We are on episode number 49. I can't believe it myself. Next time on Thursday, we are celebrating our golden jubilee. Wow, a sense of achievement, small but nevertheless commendable. Our topic for today is how to drop your ego. Friends, the word ego is quite complex. It has got it has got various ways to look at it. There are various other words like egoism, egoistic, egocentric that goes along with the word ego. And sometimes it could also be confused with overconfidence and a sense of pride. I do understand that certain words in psychology are quite tough and complicated. Nevertheless, we would address this topic, which I believe is very important from a personal growth point of view. Friends, I love the innocence of little children. In fact, I love children. It is so nice to see that they are all the time happy. Why? The reason that I see is that they judge less, they smile more, and their innocence and their honesty makes their lives easier. But what happens then? As we grow up, we develop our emotional and social intelligence, and our character starts to take shape, and then it molds our personality. It is where that ego sets in, and it's mostly about the influence of environment on our lives. For those who do not know, we are a sum total of nature, that is hereditary, and the impact of nurture, the impact of environmental influences on our growth and development. Ego keeps us locked away in our own little world. Now, you and I know the nature of ego is that it separates, and no one, I repeat, no one is immune to ego. Even though we may not be aware of it, we still have ego sometimes. And when others see that, they can even misinterpret us and judge us in various ways that we may not even be aware of. Jim Carrey once said that if you listen to the ego, there will always be someone doing better than you. No matter what you gain, the ego will not let you rest. So, in short, what Jim Carrey is talking about is that ego also springs up from a lack of self confidence and a lack of approval of what others think about us. So, a spirit of competitiveness and a spirit of comparison sprouts, at the core of ego. Friends, this is what I have to say as I start this episode. Ego is the only requirement to destroy any relationship. I repeat, ego is the only requirement to destroy any relationship. So, why don't we decide today to drop or skip that E and let it go? Now, now it's easier said than done. It's so very difficult to put it into practice because some of us may not even be aware that we are having ego unless and until somebody points it out. And if you have got ego, I don't think so you will even welcome or encourage that feedback from somebody who's genuinely interested in your growth and development. So, friends, in this episode, we will touch upon certain questions like what is ego? Where does it come from? Is there a difference between confidence, overconfidence, and ego? Are pride and ego the same? What harm can ego or too much of ego do to us? And then, of course, finally, how can we bury our ego? So, friends, grab a cup of tea or coffee, take a comfortable seat, and relax as we go deeper into this topic, episode number 49, How to Bury Your Ego. Now, for those who are here on the very first time, let me first welcome you. There is a chat box. Please go there and let us know from where you are watching us from. And during the chat, if you want to interact or if you want to send me a message or so, you're more than welcome. So I see a good friend of mine, Peter, showing up. Oh, good morning, Winnie. Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you from all the way from New York. Wonderful. Peter says Jim Carrey has gained so much awareness and his wisdom based on his recent interview. I do agree. Though he might be looking very, he's a great actor. He portrays a lot of what you call comical characters on the screen. But I believe, yes, I agree with Peter. Of late, he's been talking too much about self awareness. So, with not much ado, let's get into the topic of how to bury your ego. As usual, friends, I love to start with a quote, and this time it is someone very popular in my country of India, Rajneesh Osho. He says, and rightly so, love is happy when it is able to give something. I repeat, love is happy when it's able to give something. Ego, on the other hand, is happy when it's able to take something. So let this sink in your spirit. Reflect on it, maybe once or twice. Love is about giving, ego is about taking. Ego can destroy everything if not controlled. So, what is this ego? Put simply, the English word ego is the Latin word for I, me, myself. Literally translated, ego means I. So, I. Use of ego crept into psychology mostly through the work of Sigmund Freud. In Freud's theory, the ego is the part of the personality that arbitrates between the animalistic desires of the ID and the moral and social standards of the superego. So, if you read anything about ego, you will find out that it is placed in the center of ID and superego, identity and superego. So the next obvious question you may ask me, Owen, where does it come from? Where does ego come from? Friends, ego is born out of fear and isolation. Nobody is born with ego. Ego is born out of fear and isolation. It creates our identity and separates us from those around us when we were a child. Think about it. The birth of ego, according to Chogyam Trungpa, is the process of identifying the self in terms of opposing ourselves to others. Think about it. While it may appear that it is helping you, it is actually self defeating, and not many of them are aware about it. So, if I want to put it in plain terms, ego stems from a feeling of insecurity and lack of belief in yourself, all arising from childhood. Winnie says ego is very subtle. It's a very subtle activity of an immature human behavior. Good to see Pratik on the call. A friend of mine from Oman, Adnan. Adnan, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, I see a good friend of mine, Ravi, after a long, very long time. Ravi, welcome. He says, open your eye and close your eye. He says, open your eye and close your eye. Thank you. Thank you, Ravi, for contributing. Winnie Benjamin says, so very true that an egotistical person rarely will accept advice. So, as I said, ego is born out of fear and isolation. You may ask me, what is the difference between some egotistical and someone that is confident, someone that is egoistic or someone that is confident? Now, it's difficult to explain. There is a very fine line between confidence and ego. I see it this way: ego acts as a repellent, while confidence attracts or draws people like a magnet. So, ego is normally negative. Whereas confidence, the right amount of confidence, is good because it comes out of your self worth and self esteem. The difference is that confident people want to be successful, while people with ego only want to look successful. Now, friends, I teach leadership in most of my interventions, and it is very important for a leader not to exhibit or not to show ego. Leaders need to build and exude confidence while keeping their ego in check at all costs. Humility is what needed, not ego. Now, you may ask me, Owen, is ego and pride the same? Again, a tricky question. If you ask a person the difference between these two concepts, he will, in all probability, draw a blank. Friends, the word ego and pride are very close in meaning and so interrelated and frequently used together that sometimes it becomes difficult to differentiate between them. However, the key difference between ego and pride is that ego is a sense of self importance. You put yourself in the center, which can lead to arrogance, whereas pride can also be a sense of satisfaction coming out from some effort that resulted in favorable results in your way. Now, when it comes to the spiritual world, ego stands for edging God out. And as I said, love and ego are on the opposite side of the spectrum, and God is love. And thus we say in the spiritual world that if there is a person having ego, it is difficult for him to know true love and to be loved because he himself is in the center of everything that surrounds him and thus lacks humility. And humility is something that God loves. It's a good attribute. Winnie says ego hinders collaboration. Very true. Absolutely true. Who would like to work with a person who's having a lot of ego? Who would like to work with the person with having a lot of ego? So, is too much ego harmful and detrimental? Yes, of course. Now, some people think of ego as self respect, and they are wrong. Though there is an element of truth in it, in some cases, it can often lead to arrogance unconsciously. Ego is a feeling of being superior to others, and that's a wrong start in itself. It originates in the mind and has often no relation with reality. Ego, in simple terms, can be referred to, as I said, me, myself, and I. How selfish. A person who keeps thinking about himself all the time has a larger ego than a person who is concerned about others. So, the very fact that you are a leader, you need to understand that you are called to serve others. Thus, too much ego for a leader creates own problems of itself, and there is a possibility that he may not attract followers. So, I'm going to share with you 10 reasons why too much ego will ruin your life. And be with me. And if you have got something to share, go to the chat box, and you are more than welcome to do that. Wonderful. So let's get going. The first reason is that it makes you less compassionate. Since you're thinking and focusing on yourself, you fail to recognize the need that others experience, and thus it makes you feel less compassionate. It pushes people away from you. It stops you from growing. Think about it. Learning is lifelong. And if ego comes your way, it stops you from growing. It takes you away from people. It makes you less compassionate. It blocks love from coming into your life. It's a very big barrier in relationships. It makes you irrational at times because you only think from your perspective, and thus rationality flies out of the window. It makes you competitive in a very unhealthy way, and some people also may resort to unethical practices just to attract people to themselves, which I said before is self defeating. It makes you critical, it makes you greedy. Have a look at it. All negative aspects. And finally, it only adds more stress to you. Now, if you have experienced anything like these that I have mentioned on the slide, any of the ten points that I have mentioned on your slide, there could be a high possibility that you have ego and you may not even be aware of it. Finally, the last nail onto the coffin, it kills your happiness. And if you're not happy, there is a high possibility that the vibrations coming out of your presence, coming out of your speech, coming out of your activity is also going to be toxic. So, are there any techniques to bury your ego? Yes. And here, today in this episode, I've tried to share 7 techniques that will help you come out of this particular negative aspect called the ego. Friends, dropping the ego is the most effective way to cultivate personal well being. It is also important to, to have a balanced self esteem, to be more productive, and to enjoy a fuller life. Ego comes into the way. It's very noisy and can create a lot of problems. Hence, we need to learn to let go of our egos. How do we do that? First and foremost, try to practice forgiveness. As we have seen, majority of the time, ego is a competitive spirit. It's something that you are comparing yourself with. It's something that you are even jealous of. Forgive and let go. It's one of the most simple yet powerful tools to let go of our ego. Practice forgiveness. Forgive the ones that hurt you. Forgive them, not to make them feel big, but for you to attain some peace of mind. Forgiveness helps you to let go and thus move forward, and ego stops you from growing. Forgiveness also opens up space for positive emotions. Just hanging on to something and refusing to forgive will only withhold you, will only stop you from going ahead. Your ego, at the same time, will also feed on this emotion of unforgiveness, and that will just put you on a negative spiral. Practice forgiveness, forgive and let go. Just let things go, and you'll feel much lighter than before. The second technique that I would encourage you is learn to be transparent, learn to be honest and open. Friends, none of us are perfect. I've repeatedly said time and again in previous episodes, whenever the context was right, we are perfectly made imperfect. Be honest and open. Major ego clashes happen because we do not tend to be open and transparent, especially in our relationship with others. By being honest, we can be connected first with ourselves instead of trying to be something that we are not. We should also learn the art of saying no to people and things that do not add value to our lives. Don't complicate your lives. Stay as simple and honest, transparent and authentic. Technique number 3 is stop complaining. We live in a world where people love to complain. They look at things that are not working for them and keep a blind eye to things that are actually working in their favor. So when you complain, negativity sets in, and negativity is the source from which self hatred, self sabotage, they spring up, and ego loves to grow on it. Ego loves these things. This is what I call self imposed separation. Whenever you are starting to complain about situations, friend, whenever you are starting to complain about things or people, think about it. This is not coming from love, but instead it's the ego that surfaces, that has taken over control. And when this happens, think of things that you are grateful for in life and see how magic unfolds. As I said, you want to attract abundance, you want to express what happiness and contentment and fulfillment is in life. Try gratitude. It's the highest attitude that one can possess in life. Be grateful for the things that you have rather than being complaining about the things that you don't have. Number 4, surrender your need for control. Friends, whenever we let our egos take charge of our lives, we will never be happy or relaxed. I've seen many controlling freaks for whom everybody else is a problem. Everybody else's work is something that is not up to standard. Surrender your need for control. Learn to be open and explore and never be scared to take risks. Try to do what makes you happy and cherish those small accomplishments, those small wins. Technique number 5 that I would like to share here is, and this is quite relaxing to anybody that suffers from ego, spend some time in nature. Friends, nature, unlike any other man made structure, has no limitations. It simply expands. Spending time with nature makes you realize one important thing, that we are a part of a vast universe and we are not the only people who rule in it. This would help your ego to take a back seat. Take a walk in the forest, take a walk in nature, look around, enjoy the beauty of nature, the vastness of nature, and how beautifully it accommodates every person. We are called to enjoy nature. Nature isn't selfish. So that's the lesson that anybody with ego needs to take. Spend time in nature. Technique number 6, spend time with yourself. Learn to appreciate who you are and what you have achieved in life so far. We have all come to this point, and I'm sure we have overcome many obstacles and challenges. Now, I'm sure there are many people around you to put you down. I know that for sure. Spend time with yourself, take away the noise. Create an everyday routine to remind yourself why it's so beautiful to be with you. In fact, this morning I wrote this: the person that you will spend the most time with in your life is you. Celebrate yourself, celebrate your existence, celebrate the spirit of life in you. Take 5 minutes every day to be with yourself in silence, because sometimes in silence, you can find the answers from within when you shut yourself from noises that can only choke you. A little whisper that is coming within yourself is good and soothing to your soul. And finally, technique number 7 is practice gratitude. As the saying goes, it's not happy people who are thankful, it's thankful people who are happy. Why don't you take 5 minutes every day to appreciate things, people, lessons, and mistakes that you are thankful for? The more you appreciate, there is less rooms for complaints. The more grateful and compassionate you are, the more lively you can feel. Now, how to develop the habit of gratitude? Please go to my YouTube channel. In episode number 26, we have got a full episode. We focused on how to develop the habit of gratitude. So, friends, practice forgiveness, be transparent, be honest and open, stop complaining, kill negativity in the bud, surrender your need for control, control only what you can. Spend time in nature, spend time with yourself, and practice gratitude. Slowly, as we come to the end of this episode, I have this to say. Ego stems from a feeling of insecurity, as I said before. When egoists don't receive others' validation, they look for the quickest way to jump ship. So, my request to you is that don't go on an ego trip. It's a journey that leads you to nowhere. Egotism is the anesthetic which nature gives us to deaden the pain of being a fool. This is what Dr. Herbert Schofield says. Try as much as possible to break the shackles of ego and set yourself free on your path to fulfillment and happiness. Finally, I mention a quote from Gillian Michaels. She says, "A bad day for your ego is a great day for your soul." Wow, I love it. Friends, those with egos are unable to see the world with the right mindset. They aren't able to recover from success. They are alienated by friends because of their attitude. Don't that be you? Simply put, nobody likes them. These people see the world through blinders that make everything only about them. They fail to see the bigger picture. Success for them is hindered even before it begins. Let that not be you. Don't let ego destroy what you have taken years to build. And that's your awesome self, your personality. Now, as I said before, there is no harm in having a good amount of self respect. But ego, be careful. Make sure you know the difference. Friends, thanks for watching. You will find the references of what has been shared at the end of this video. Feel free to use them further for your personal growth. And this is my request to you. If you liked this episode, please comment and share. Also, you could go to my YouTube channel where this episode and all the 48 episodes are uploaded. Take some time, share it with your friends if you like. And if you really feel that this is adding value to yourself and to your people, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Remember, the win is always within you. I, Owen Fernandez, am here to help you be victorious. I believe in you, and together we can. Stay safe. Bye for now, and see you on the next episode of Tea Time with Owen.